So for the true experimental design, it has the characteristics of randomization, control, and manipulation. So that makes it a true experimental design. So there are still a lot of examples or specific types of true experimental design. So we have here pre-test, post-test control group. We have post-test only control group, randomized block design, factorial design, Solomon 4 group, crossover measures, or counterbalance design. Now, the pre-test, post-test control group. So we have here random assignment of our population or our animal. We have the experimental group and the control group. And we have here the pre-test, and for the experimental group, we have the pre-test, and for the control group, we have the pre-test. So both of our experimental and control group must have a baseline, okay? And then for the experimental group, it will receive a treatment. But the control group does not receive a treatment. And both of them will going to have a post-test. So for example, in our pharmacy discipline, in experimental pre-test and post-test control group. Example, our experimental group and control group here are rabbits. So our rabbits, we draw blood from our rabbits and test it for the baseline sugar level. For our experimental group, we can add the treatment. The treatment can be our plant extract, or it can be our standard of care, the medicine that we are going to use to compare our experimental group with the standard of care. And then for the control group, it has no treatment to be received. So the post-test, again, we will withdraw blood from the rabbit and check if who among or what group has manifested the decrease in blood glucose significantly compared to the control group. Okay, so for the control group, since we have the pre-test and we don't have treatment, the blood glucose of our control group will be compared with the other groups and will be processed statistically. The next type of true experimental research design is the post-test only control group. So from the word itself, post-test only, it has no pre-test. Okay, if the same example applies, we have here our experimental group and control group. There is no baseline testing. You just add directly the treatment and get the post-test result, right? For the third one, this is randomized block design. So subjects are assigned to blocks based on gender, for example. So then with each block, subjects are randomly assigned to treatment. Either it's a placebo or a vaccine. So for example, this design, we have 250 men gets the placebo and 250 men gets the vaccine. 250 women get the placebo and 250 women get the vaccine. So it is randomized, but it has a number of respondents or number of samples assigned to it in blocks. For example, the target population is here in the Philippines. So we will randomly select 500 Filipino male and 500 Filipino female. So from the 500 Filipino male, we have 250 assigned for vaccination and 250 assigned for placebo. The same thing with Filipino female. So we can also employ blinded randomized block design, or we can have single blinded or double blinded randomized block design. when you say single-blinded, the researchers will know who will be assigned in the vaccination or the vaccine, who will receive the vaccine and who will receive the placebo. But our population will not know what are they receiving. That is the single randomized block design. While on the other hand, we have also double-blinded study or double-blinded randomized block design employed in randomized controlled trials. So both our target population and the researchers do not know who received the vaccine and do not know who receives the placebo. That is the most reliable randomized control design because there is no bias and there's no bias to it, in other words. The fourth true experimental design is the factorial design. So researcher manipulates two or more independent variables simultaneously to observe their effects on the dependent variables. So this design is useful when there are two or more independent variables called as factors to be tested. So we have here group 1, group 2, group 3, and group 4. So the factors, our major independent variables, we have our time in instruction and setting. So we have different dependent variables according also to time per week, which is 1 hour and 4 hours a week. And we have also pull out in class and then pull out from class, and we have in class. So this can be complicated, but if you have you have research topic that will fall or will be fitted on this factorial design, then it can be done too. The next one is the Solomon 4 group design. So the Solomon 4 group design, from the random assignment of the target population, we have experimental group, we have the control group, the experimental group 2, and the control group 2. So in the group 1 of both experimental and control group, it will perform pretest, while the group 2 will proceed with the treatment. So as you can see, the general picture is just the combination of the number 1 and the number 2, the pre-test, post-test, and the post-test only. So this is called the Solomon 4 group design. An example here is the effectiveness of workshop on management of HIV to improve nurses' attitude towards patients with AIDS admitted in selected hospitals. So you can apply this into your research topic. If you want to check for effectiveness, if you want to know the level of knowledge, you can apply Solomon 4 group design. Given that you have a treatment or an intervention, to make it qualify as a Solomon 4 group under experimental research design. Okay, the last one is the crossover design or the repeated measure counterbalance design. It involves the exposure of the same subject with more than one experimental treatment. So it has more than one experimental treatment. So an example here for our group 1 and group 2 population, in the first 3 months, it will receive drug A for the group 1, and for group 2, it will receive drug B. There would be washout period where the respondents or the samples will not receive drug, and after that one, it will proceed in the month 5 to month 7, and they will have an interchange drug. For group 1, it will receive now drug B, and for group 2, it will receive drug A. So this is the picture to summarize crossover design. This is very helpful in determining adverse drug reactions, in determining clinical effectivity of drugs in the actual population. But with our condition right now in our online distance learning in the pandemic, this is not feasible in our setting because we need a lot of equipments and techniques to employ and to conduct, and it requires face-to-face interaction. But this is the crossover design.